Tonight we're here with David Palmer, who's an astrologist. He's also a reality star, but right now he's on YouTube doing astrology daily. I highly recommend checking in with him. And the reason I'm having David on is because I know a lot of people might not believe in astrology or might not know much more about astrology other than what they see in the paper, some blurb like, a fortune cookie that has no relevance to them. But just to segue shortly over to why I think astrology is important is because I happened when my ex-husband was on tour and I went to a coffee shop. I was telling David this, that, you could take a book after, you had the meal, and I got a book on Einstein, and basically he said he believed in astrology because it was a hard science, it was based on Pythagorean theory, and that translating it to a person was difficult because you needed somebody to understand that translation. And up to then, he didn't think they were doing a great job. Well, either did I until I came upon David, you. I think you're very, very gifted, and I would like to share with people the possibility to think about astrology and the fact that it's based on vibration and math, that it does have some relevance. And so welcome, David.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I love you. I've been watching your channel forever. I'm so glad that we connected.
Oh, well, thank you. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
I've got so much support for you.
Thank you. Thank you. And, David does readings every day, almost daily, and you can find them right away in the morning. They're really inspirational. I like to always watch them with my coffee. So thank you, David, for making videos, because you make astrology, you bring it down to earth for people and how they can use it in their own life. And I never, I had stopped looking at it, and somehow it became relevant again because of you. And so, for those people that might not know anything about astrology or might be, not sure that it's real, what can you say to them, and how did it come into your life?
Well, astrology has always been looked at as a belief. I don't look at it as a belief. I really look at it as a holy science. I look at it as the connection of spirit and science together and the universal energy. And I love astrology with all my heart. It started for me when I was young. I got told I was a Leo from my mom, and I was like, oh my gosh, I read Leo, and I knew I was like so special, and I just loved everybody, and I'm like, oh, I'm totally a Leo. And then I was into astronomy as a kid. I was a nerd in chess club, but I also loved the ladies. So I started to use astrology and astronomy. I knew the planets. I knew Mercury all the way to Pluto. I knew the distances. I knew what they were made of. And it just started to click in high school. I started, asking all the girls out, and I would know their sign. And then I was like, oh my gosh, every Pisces girl just is this way, and everybody's like this. And it just so clicked for me. And then what happened was I got into my 20s and I went deep into the spiritual path, and I started looking at astrology charts. And I also started to research astrology from an ancient point of view. The ancients have been using astrology since the very beginning, all the way in Babylonia. I mean, some of the original bones that are of these old ancient human beings have carvings of where the star patterns are. And so that really intrigued me. And when you go back into history and you start to look at how it was used, how it's been formed, it all comes down to the basic, earthly science of how the sun and the earth have a relationship. I mean, the sun signs that you typically know in astrology, yes, they are in the relation to what that constellation pattern is behind from the view of Earth, but it also is in relation to the sun up to the sun down. That's why Aries is the beginning of the day, the start of the chart. That's from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. And it goes all the way around to Librans, which are at the end, that sunset. That's where the balance of night and day is on those two equinox points. And astrology is really based off the equinoxes, the seasons in life. And these are the same seasons we go through, life, death, the same seasons that we go through on Earth of cold and hot. And we really do start to notice the same patterns in astrology that the universe has within our own lives.
Wow. Wow, that's really, really interesting. And I like the way you used astrology. My son's a Leo, and he uses his music like that. It's like, oh, there's a pretty girl. Let me play my guitar. But yeah, I can see how astrology would work really well. But hey, lucky us that you ended up using that to get where you're at, because now you're one of the best I've ever run into. and I had a reading with you, and that's it was awesome. So, and you were
Oh,
right on.
thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, totally. Not only for me, but for the other people in my life that you read for, they were, wow, that sounded like me. Um, but the vibration thing, I think it's really interesting because there are different, like you've been talking about lately, the whole water essence, and we're both surfers. So, when you're talking about the whale and going to, down underneath and the submarine and this whole feeling, it's like, I understood that, there are different, I mean, elements. Sometimes you feel more, fiery, enthusiastic. And I mean, I don't know. What do you have to say about that?
Well, it's so amazing because it really does come back always down to the science. I mean, the elements are the same elements that are in our body. There's water in our bodies. We are carbon. That's the earthly parts of ourselves. The air, the oxygen we breathe. And then there is the fire, the electricity that does come into our head, coming through our heart. There is all of these same patterns that we find as above, as so below. So an example that I like to use is a lot of people don't even know what's outside of this solar system. Yes, they think it's just pictures of galaxies or pictures of all these black holes or pictures of all these different systems, when really, when you start to understand the pattern of what our sun is doing in this galaxy, it will blow your mind. A lot of people think that the sun is just sitting there, just like at the center, right, of our galaxy that we know of, and the Earth goes around the sun. Well, the sun is going around the galaxy and taking us on a journey. We are moving along at a really fast rate. You'd be mind blown to know that we're going how many thousands of miles an hour and it doesn't feel like it, And then on top of it, the sun is taking us on a journey around the galaxy. And that's what these ages are. That's the whole age of Aquarius. We really have just stepped into that right now. And I'm sure you can feel it. Of course, the age of Aquarius would be crazy. You and I talking on Skype, looking at a cell phone, everybody able to talk to each other on Facebook. That would have been crazy in the age of Pisces, which was what? The fish, the confusion, the spiritual belief structure. You know how many beliefs there were in the age of Pisces for the last couple thousand years? I mean, how many forms of Christianity are there? How many forms of Judaism are there? How many forms of all this? Everybody's kind of like, I believe, but I don't know. It's the most confusing 2,000 years of all time. And we just left that. And we're actually at a place of enlightenment where we know. It's about understanding what we know, an intuitive know, a genius know, of putting things together. And actually, this is about humanity coming together now. This is about us really embracing together and becoming back in the one and making our lives, the best that we can. So it's a really exciting time.
It is really exciting. I mean, and ultimately, that's a really great place to get to because we're all connected. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know how you can't feel for people around the world when you see what they're going through. Now that we know, like before we were so isolated, it was like, go, go, USA. Talk about having the blinders pulled off. All of a sudden you're like, what? We did what? Oh, that's not so good. Oh my God, what's going on? So, yeah, I hope to see, and us spreading that good energy. I do feel it. I feel it more than ever. I used to feel like I really had to tell the news that somehow we had to do something. And now I kind of feel like we have to care and we have to put that out there. But we actually have to really love our life, and love the people in them, if we have them in it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And because, I mean, I walked up to this woman today at the restaurant, and it was the weirdest thing. And she just turned to me, I smiled at her, and it was this older woman. She was like, thank you. And I was like, for what? She's like, I don't know, you're just so bright. I'm like, thank you for smiling at me. She didn't know what to say, and it was like one of those weird spiritual being moments where you're like, oh my God, her life must be really dull or something, and here's a living happy spirit, and it's like it brightened her up, and I was like, whoa. That's when I realized like when I had my reading with you, and you're like, you need to go out, and you have a destiny you need to go forth on. And I think that building that light in each of us, when you see what a little bit of light can do, just passing by somebody you don't know, it's you owe it to yourself to find a way to be happy. And I think your astrology really helps, because sometimes you'll go into since I've been watching you, for instance, there's been difficult times in my life where I tend to get too heady and then I'll get into this like, oh, and then I'll realize it's not just me. It's this whole phase we're going through, and I shouldn't be, hard on myself, which I tend to do. And I think that that's a great way where it just helps people when they know what's going on, when you let them know, hey, it's not just you, it's all of us. We're all feeling a little crazy, unsure, It just helps you not only connect to humanity, but like love yourself more and be like, okay, all right, so I'm going to take it easy today. Like, I don't know. It really helped me. So I really appreciate it.
It's all about this collective energy, but it's a multidimensional energy. We are in a multidimensional universe, and astrology even is multidimensional. I mean, you can just keep looking at certain situations, whether it's a global situation, whether it's a collective situation, the individual, the monthly, the yearly. People, I think, really need to start paying attention to all of the universe of what is happening here, and to step away from the very simple doorsteps most people just reach to, but they don't walk in the door all the way. It's like, oh, astrology, it's just this. How could that be related? Well, when you start to see the patterns of how deep this goes, intergalactic, start to understand what's happening in our galaxy. If you know the math of our galaxy, the timetables of our galaxy, the same timetables of the week, the year, these were all built off our solar system. All the years, the months were based off the moon. I mean, we actually, as a society, live on a calendar system that is the farthest thing away from nature. Why do you think it's not working out too well on a Monday?
I know all about that, like with the whole Mayan stuff I went through, like how the tribes were all on 13 moons, 28 days, just like women's menstrual cycles, and we're in tune with the planet. And that whole like, oh, let's name them after our sons, Augustus, and we'll make this one 31 days, and this one will be 30, and like every 4 years we're just going to leap over in like February. Yeah, great points about how that macro is manifesting in the micro in our lives, and to think that it's not. Yeah. And the whole other thing about that I've been noticing lately is like, people get really, sometimes we try really hard in the third dimension to get something done that we want done. And then sometimes I realize, like a friend of mine's family, they're all fighting. And no matter what they seem to do, nobody seems to understand each other, and they're always fighting. And I kept praying for them and being like, wow, or like maybe I can talk to somebody for you. And then I realized it's like, no, it's stuck in the third dimension. I have to go to a higher dimension where we're all connected, where there's the divine space. And I have to ask, like for me, God and the angels, like, help these people out, man. They like help them find a way where none of us seem to find a way. And I think that's a really important thing, because we think sometimes that we have to find the way, instead of realizing that there is a greater consciousness, whatever you want to put that name on, whatever it feels good for you, that is acting on our behalf if we let it, If we let it. And the other thing is, I use astrology, and I think everybody should, just like our ancients did, even the churches did. I mean, a lot of what has happened in our religions were all based off astrology in many different forms. Astrology is much more than the Aries and the Libra and the Leo of what you've heard. It's a lot more than just those simple things. But it's about us seeing within each other, being able to look at somebody and look at their own vibration. And it gives the ability for us to actually start to understand why, let's say, my best friend gets stressed every time that he doesn't make that much money. It's about us really starting to accept, love each other. Like, oh, that's you being a Leo. Like, you're going to need some attention. You're going to need lots of loves and hugs and good jobs. And it's like, you'll flourish under that. And you could look at that as a negative, or you can be like, that's that person, and that's what makes them great. And I have found that things that are exceptionally trying in people, when I find out, like, they're a Scorpio or something, I can understand, like, whoa, well, they got a lot of stuff going on all the time. It's not as easy for them to be as lighthearted. And I can be a little more loving and not judgmental, because we all have something. I guess a lot of the signs have the serpent and the eagle aspects, like Scorpio, right?
Yeah. And that's the time we're in. I mean, right now is Saturn in Scorpio, and this is the last time we were here was 1983 and 84. And this was some intense periods in our lives, you know, and this is intense periods. This is us cutting away at things that get in between our desires, our emotions in our life. And when you go into astrology, there's many different forms. There's very spiritual, then there's the typical, you know, that you read in the newspaper. And when you use it in the original way that it was intended for, to look deep into the human soul, to look deep into the fabric of consciousness and how this whole entire universe works, that same pattern is in there. And you can literally manifest everything you've ever wanted, know your path. The biggest choice is not the choices you make here. You already made that choice to come down here, and it's aligning with the choices to come back to the biggest choice you already made. And that's really what I believe astrology does.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, that might be the perfect place to like stop for today, and because that's like, whoa, and I'm not even sure what you said. I'm gonna have to think about that.
Well, think about that. You've already made the biggest choice of your life. The only choices you have now left is to make sure that you align with that choice. When you come down here, there's this whole thing of free will. Sure, the free will is whether or not you align with the destiny that you already set. You and the universe already aligned. Yep, that's it, baby. I'm coming down here to do this. But we've all been duped to think that, oh, we have the free will to control everything in our life, when the biggest control freak energy is actually what turns out to where, sure, yeah, you manifested the house, the car, and everything, and you're the most unhappy person on the planet buying women every Tuesday to come to your house. Like, that's not your destiny, buddy. Sorry to tell you. You know, you've already written it, and it's as simple as already written in your whole fabric of your spiritual DNA, which is written in the stars, which is written in the energies, and in many different forms. And astrology is just one. But when you use the choice to align with that huge choice you already made, you are the happiest, most amazing soul on the planet.
I agree. I think you're right on. I was amazed. You know, I had an astrology reading early on, and they said something. Oh, and at the time I was acting. You know what I mean? I was going up for big movie parts against Julia Roberts, and he's like, "Yeah, 20 years, you're gonna be huge." I'm like, "What? 20 years? What the heck?" You know, I'm like, but it's funny that, you know, I came back around and had this conversation with you, when I had a reading with you, and you said, whoa, here it is. But now it sounds good because I'm right here. So, and there's some really exciting things going on that I'm excited about. So anyway, everybody, this is David Palmer. David Palmer Astrology does readings every day. Go subscribe to him. He's amazing. He's inspirational, as you all can see. And I would definitely love to have you back, David, for another interview. I hope you can come back and join us.
Of course. I love you. I love coming and watching all your stuff. You know, you are just such a great leader and pushing out the truth, and you got to just keep doing it because we need you. And honestly, the world needs a lot more powerful women out there to bring this beautiful energy. And I kind of look at myself as like an empowering, you know, woman supporter kind of dude, like, you know.
All right.
And it works great for me because I love women. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, I'll empower all the women, baby. That's a great job.
And for anybody that actually knows Leos, you are such a classic Leo, which is awesome because doesn't everybody love Leos? Everybody, David, thanks for joining us. I'm going to leave all of David's information in the box below, and at the end, go see him, go subscribe, and David, we'll talk soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.